Well, good morning to the in-person guests we have here at Yeti Auditorium at Aalto University in the city of Espoo, and also a good day and good morning wherever you are with the virtual guests that we have dialing in today. Welcome to the UN Global Pulse Scale Accelerator Strategy Showcase. My name is Patricia Lowe. And I am the Senior Analyst in Innovation Scaling, and I'll be moderating today's session. So unfortunately, you'll be hearing a lot from me. So I'd like to just give you an overview of why we're here today. So we have today with us 7 UN teams in Finland this week that have come to us here from across the world to take their innovations to greater heights. And they represent the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, the International Trade Center, the International Organization for Migration from Mexico, and also another team from HQ, the UN country team from Colombia, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime for Colombia, and the World Food Program. And the past 3 days have been very full, very intense days of them workshopping their strategies to take their innovations, their piloted innovations to scale. We did see the sights of Finland though. So on the first day, they went through a living, breathing innovation that has been scaled and driven by the community. So we went through a walk through the Oodi Central Library. And then on the second evening, they went to Demos Helsinki and heard from an inspiring panel on lessons from scaling for systems change. A few brave souls went to the sauna after that and went swimming in the icy cold waters. So well done for that. I think, does that make you half finished? I'm not quite sure. And then yesterday, on top of all of that, yesterday on the final day, we gave them the ultimate challenge. We asked them to summarize everything they've done in the last few years, everything they've done in the last 3 days, and tell us it all in 5 minutes. And that we will be hearing from them today in a minute. So jet lagged, tired, and excited. I don't know how you're feeling, but what I can say on everyone here, we are so very, very proud of you. Thank you so much for doing what you do and for bringing that to us here and giving us this chance to help you as well. So I won't say any more. So perhaps I will kickstart the session with Tapio Vatola, who's our head of office for UN Global Pulse, to give his welcome.
Thank you, Pat. Excellencies, colleagues, friends, welcome on my behalf as well. As Pat mentioned, I'm the head of office for Global Pulse here in Helsinki. It's really, really nice to see you all here, and all of those, welcome to all of those of you also on the online. This is the first time that we are organizing such an accelerator in person, and it will definitely not be the last time, and that is already thanks to all of you who have made this a success already thus far. I will not say much more because we have a word of welcome as well from our director, Ayaka Suzuki, and from our colleague Aki from MFA. But a big thank you for all of those of you who are here now, and in particular to the MFA for their long-standing support to UN Global Pulse, as well as the Aalto University and the city of Espoo, who have gracefully hosted us here. And from my side personally, a big thank you to our team who have pulled this together, led by Marketa and Pat here, in a very short, I'd say, world record time, and made all of this possible, and made it possible for colleagues also to travel from all corners of the world here to Espoo and Finland to be with us today. Thank you so much.
Tapio. Now, if you can just give us a quick second, and we'll be hearing greetings from New York from Ayaka Suzuki. who is the director.
Good morning, everyone.
From the Executive Office of the UN Secretary General.
My name is Ayaka Suzuki. I'm the Director of Strategic Planning and Monitoring Unit in the Secretary General's office. I'm pleased to welcome you to the second cohort of the Global Pulse Accelerator Program and show our full support to the mission that has brought you all together. Today's event is more than just a showcase of your scale strategies. It is a step in advancing our common agenda and the vision of a UN 2.0. All of you are contributing to this vision of a United Nations system that can meet the complex challenges of our time with agility and inclusivity. Innovation is at the heart of the transformation, empowering us to quickly generate, test, and scale ideas that drive sustainable impact for people and the planet. I want to take a moment to extend my gratitude to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland. Your steadfast support has been invaluable in advancing impactful innovations, and today's event is a testament to that strong partnership. I would also like to recognize the broader Finnish innovation ecosystem that has been essential to this Scale Accelerator. The city of Espoo, Aalto University, Demos Helsinki, have each been crucial in fostering an environment that has allowed this program to flourish. And of course, a big thanks to our team at UN Global Pulse Finland, whose dedication has brought the accelerator to life and continue to push the boundaries of what can be achieved. I'm excited to see how the program will continue to evolve and support our UN teams on the ground. To the 7 teams we're celebrating today, congratulations! You were selected from a highly competitive pool of almost 100 applications from over 20 UN entities. We're inspired by your initiatives from regions all over the world, contributing to a broad range of SDGs across focus areas including gender equality, decent work, reduced inequality, peace and justice, and global partnerships. To the 7 teams presenting today, I wish you good luck with your presentation, and I would like to encourage you to approach today not as the end of your journey, but the beginning of what I hope will be a continuous collaboration, learning, and scaling your impactful work. For the Scale Accelerator Program, we will continue to evolve and help driving the UN 2.0 vision. The team will continue to build an ecosystem that fosters connections across UN entities and supporting innovation teams in a sustainable way. Beyond today, I encourage you all to stay connected, not only with each other, but with a whole ecosystem of partners, including Finland, who have welcomed and supported you over this week. I wish you the best of luck as you continue your scale journey, and look forward to hearing more about your teams and progress in the future.
And now we'll hear from Aki from the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Finland. Over to you, Aki.
Thank you, Patricia, and good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here in the second installment of this program this year. I was also there for the first one early in the spring, but this is really, as Marketta explained and Tapio explained, this is the first real life, implementation of this. So very happy to see it happening finally. My name is Aki Enkenberg, and I work as a team lead for international technology for the Ministry for Foreign Affairs. We have supported the UN Global Pulse since 2020 when they decided to establish the office here in Finland. They've been one of our most important partners in the United Nations system in taking our commitment to leverage technology and innovation for sustainable development further. And we're very happy to see them grow and achieve impact, for example, through the Scale Accelerator Program. In a much more uncertain world, as was explained here already, it's absolutely crucial that we put much more emphasis on how we deal with the future, how we prepare for the future, how we employ foresight to guide our policymaking and practices, but also how we can be more agile in terms of innovating and designing for the future. And in this program, these two aspects hopefully come together and complement each other in a nice way. And it's also part of the Finnish mission today in terms of how we prepare for the future. We do realize that it's absolutely necessary to invest in competence, know-how, education, research, innovation, technological expertise, be that in the public sector or private sector. But we also realize that this needs to be done in a sustainable way with a sustainable future in mind. And this is where there's very good alignment between our mission in a way and the United Nations mission. This program hopefully is a new way to support innovation in the UN system. There's been very good progress in the past 10 years or so in terms of how different agencies, different initiatives in the UN have emerged, developed, new types of funding mechanisms have appeared, support mechanisms, initiatives, new types of competencies being developed. And I do think that this is being taken quite seriously at the moment in terms of how the UN is prepared to renew itself, to be more prepared for the future. But the role of the UN Global Pulse, I hope, is to provide a more systemic approach, more systematic way to support this agenda across the whole system, bringing various teams from different agencies together to think about the hard issues in terms of how to leverage and scale innovation and also collaborate with each other. There's been a long-standing commitment from Finland and from the Ministry for Foreign Affairs to support innovation in the UN system. This goes back several years, and this remains part of our agenda today. As I mentioned in the beginning, I lead a team which is focused on what we call international technology policy, but this is a very broad agenda. It brings together not only issues related to the multilateral system and the UN and innovation in that context, but also how we prepare to secure our future, how we prepare to make sure that technology is developed in a responsible and secure way, that security aspects are being taken care of, and how we govern this process going forward in terms of emerging and new technologies and what the risks and opportunities of those are today and in the future. We also want to make sure that there's Finnish competencies and Finnish partnerships developed and leveraged as part of the process. And the whole purpose, I hope, of bringing you, the teams, to Finland is also to see how you can potentially partner or benefit or learn from what's going on in Finland and from the various partners that are involved in supporting the program, be that the city of Espoo or Sitra or Aalto or others who now have the opportunity to learn about your work. So in one way, this is of course a showcase, but also to see what the opportunities to partner with you are in the future, and what are the exciting things that are happening at the moment in the UN system, where opportunities for working together might emerge. So with these words, I'll stop here and hope you have a good rest of the week, and of course, I'm very excited to see the showcase and learn about your work now. Thank you.
Thank you, Aki. And thank you to the Ministry for Foreign Affairs as well for this opportunity, but also we are hosted in the city of Espoo and at Aalto University. So next up is Heli Hidén, who is from the city of Espoo, who will be saying a few words as well, followed by Hannu Seristö from the Aalto University.
Thank you and welcome, Your Excellencies, dear guests and friends. So happy to be here with Hannu, welcoming you all again to our innovation community and your home nowadays. So I'm here, standing here because our mayor and now their directors of economic development couldn't come because they are celebrating right now our yesterday's announcement that we are the second in the iCapital Awards. So from the cities. So very proud. This is the second time around that we are second, and that really tells you something. And of course, it's nothing about just the city. The city is nothing without its community, and in this case, our innovation community. And that's why we are really happy to be here at the Aalto University. And I also have a friend here from VTT, Maija, and when we talk about, and we've told you that we are the number 6 in all patents in Europe, in every city of Europe, so we are number 6. That is all the hard work of VTT, our biggest research center in the Nordics, and also Aalto University and big cities. So, but when we talk about patents, and the whole thing is about talking about impact. So the whole innovation community is now driving to sustainability and impact. And just giving you the last number, because last time yesterday we were actually looking at Aalto Startup Center, which is the super nice startup center in this building. Is that 95% of all the investment to startups is actually going to impact startups. So the ones that are really doing everything for the UN SDGs. So our community is about sustainability and impact, and of course, deep tech. But now with these words, I would like all of you to feel free to contact us anytime to come back to our innovation community and feel like this is your home. So good luck all the teams today. Very nice to see how your innovations are going. So please, Hannu from Aalto University.
Thank you, Heli, Your Excellencies, dear innovators and partners. It is indeed a pleasure and privilege to have you in Finland, in Espoo, Helsinki region, and on our campus. You have spent some time here already and may have heard about the university a bit, but just a few points relevant to the theme of innovation and global pulse. This university started 15 years ago through a merger of 3 universities: technology, business, and arts and design. And the working title for the initiative was the Innovation University. So that's in the DNA of this university very, very much. Today, this campus where we are now is in fact, even though this is a tiny country, remote corner of Europe, this is one of the innovation hotspots in Europe and globally measured, very vibrant environment. To give you an idea, we have 1,400 companies on or right next to campus, and right next to means like 10-minute walk from this hall. So that's quite a lot of companies, and half of the Helsinki Stock Exchange value is in this neighborhood. And we have hundreds of startups here as well. To give a prime example, what's been happening in the innovation and startup scene. About 10 years ago, a student project built a first nano satellite size of about 1 liter satellite. And now that company called ICEYE, which still is on campus, the headquarters are here, it has grown into a global company with nearly 800 employees. They develop, manufacture, and operate campus satellites, and they are on campus, plus in North America and elsewhere in the world, a leader in its field. So it's truly high-tech, space tech, and proud to have that sort of companies here. As to the sustainability topic, one of the strength areas of research here, and as Heli mentioned, sustainability is cross-cutting basically whatever the university does, but a very exciting example is the materials for textiles of the future, polyesters and so on, not sustainable at all. And even cotton is a bit problematic. Recycling is super difficult, nearly impossible. So since actually 1970s, the science has been done on this campus to develop alternatives, wood-based fibers. And that is now on industrial scale and working with the largest textile and fashion companies of the world. Those companies that originate the research from this campus are hopefully changing textile industry for the better in the world. So that's for the innovation, and I hope you have a chance to look around a little bit. The other dimension I wish to mention is the global dimension. So very surprisingly, and typically big surprise to Finns as well, Aalto University today is one of the most international universities in the world. We are absolutely top, if we take, let's say, continental Europe. So research and teaching personnel half is from elsewhere than Finland. And we have about 5,000 personnel. We have about 15,000 students. So in any measures, we are super international. I think we have 120 nationalities. So that is absolutely a strength also for innovation work. And of course, a lot of our work here is like tech-based and deep tech-based innovation, but there are a lot of like service design things and so on, closer to the human behavior. And there, this very, very global multinational working environment helps tremendously. So I hope you have a chance to see around, and hope you have a very fruitful and great experience. And please keep in touch with Finland and Espoo, Helsinki region, and the university once many of you go back to your home country. So great to have you here. I do hope you have a very, very useful week. Thank you.
Thank you, Heli and Hannu. And with those inspiring words, we will be hearing from the 7 teams soon, but just to give you a bit of a background of the UN Global Pulse Scale Accelerator, I will also be inviting you to join us in following the footsteps of the last 3 days with the teams. But first, a quick introduction to the UN Global Pulse Scale Accelerator. So this is cohort 2, as Aki mentioned, but the first cohort in person. The earlier cohort went through the same programs, and the Scale Accelerator is the UN's program for supporting teams within the UN network in taking piloted solutions that are innovative to widespread use. And it offers an evidence-based curriculum that's structured around 3 main things, and I'll show you and walk you through that in a bit. And it's designed to help teams undertake a structured multidisciplinary approach to drive the future of their innovations. So this infographic here summarizes the entire program very quickly. So first thing is the workshop series, which culminates in today. So all participating teams would have gone through an assessment of their innovation to see how scale ready their innovations are. Through those workshops, they would build the strategy to reach that scale vision. And then following this, the 2 teams with the most well-defined and compelling scale strategies will be rewarded $60,000 US each in the Scale Catalyst grant. And then following that, the selected teams will get additional support to implement these strategies. I'd like to also take this moment here to acknowledge cohort 1 of the Scale Accelerator. And I believe some of the previous grant recipients have dialed in as well. And I'd really like to acknowledge them here. And so the last cohort, we had 3 grant recipients because they were all so good, and we couldn't really decide. And they are WHO with their multi-UN agency initiative called Tobacco Free Farms. And it's an initiative. It's an initiative to move away from tobacco farming to start farming high nutritional value crops. And that's led by WHO. Then there was WFP with Farm to Go, which is a digital platform connecting smallholder women farmers to cooperatives to give them a fair chance at better prices for their produce and for equal opportunities as well. And then there's also UNFPA Uganda with Drug Dash, which is an app designed to prevent stock out of sexual and reproductive health commodities in Uganda. So I'd like to acknowledge these 3 grant recipients from cohort 1 as well. And then moving on to this cohort, this is a snapshot of what these teams have been through in the last 3 days and today. So in day 1, they would have been taken through with visioning and setting the foundation for where their innovations want to go. And we had our UN Global Pulse Foresight team supporting that and applying foresight to assess the current status of their innovation and then developing that value proposition and that scaling vision of their innovations. Day 2, with support from Demos Helsinki, they went through assessing the readiness of their solution. How ready is the solution, the innovation that is the core of all of this? And then assessing how ready the team is and the organization is to support that scaling journey that they would have set in day 1. At the same time, our UN Global Pulse Creative Comms colleague helped them set the tone of how to tell their innovation story from day 1. Day 3, so you can see now that's all building up towards a strategy. So day 3, once they've already assessed the solution and the teams and the organization around it, next they looked at how ready their network, their partners are ready to help them to scale. And that was also with the support of Demos Helsinki. And then to wrap up day 3, we said, right, you've got a draft strategy. It's ready to be implemented. How else can we make this resilient? And that again, with applied foresight, we walk them through steps to see what are the things you should consider or do to make your strategies resilient throughout the test of time. Now, that's a lot of information. So bear in mind as well, these teams have been asked to condense everything into 5 minutes today. So I can't emphasize enough how proud we are that you've come to this stage. And we're so very excited to hear your 5-minute presentation. And there'll also be time for some Q&A after that. But first things first, we will also walk through, again, a very, very brief timeline that you might find familiar already, just to give you an overview of the next weeks ahead. So after the workshops, the strategy showcase today is where we will celebrate them and hear what they've done in the last 3 days. They will have a whole week after this to develop a fuller document called the Scale Strategy. And it's a multi-page document that outlines in more details what they will do. And then it will be reviewed by 5 reviewers, who I'll introduce in a bit. And we hope to make a grant decision by the 5th of December. So things are moving fast. Now here are our reviewers, and you might see a few familiar faces. So first is Aki Enkenberg, Chief Senior Specialist from the Finnish MFA. And we also have Marketa Glan sitting in the front here from UN Global Pulse, Head of Programs. I believe we also have a virtual reviewer dialing in, Mona Abbas, who's the CEO of the Asfari Foundation. And we have 2 other reviewers who unfortunately are unable to join us today, but they will be watching the recordings. It's Tuli Hietaniemi, who is the senior lead from the Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra, and Laura Fisher, who's a global development expert from the public sector as well. Now, here is the order of presentations of which you'll hear our colleagues speak, starting with BioDAF from FAO. And we will be handing over to them soon. And let's just get this started. Apologies. I want to emphasize as well. So these teams have been given the brief to use this as a practice session on presenting their work to a chosen target audience. So for BioDAF, they will be presenting to donors, investors, and funders.
So I take this time just especially to thank all of you for this incredible journey. It has been 3 amazing days, and also for this country for hosting us, because it's a really amazing country. I think we can get started. Thank you so much. Yes. So hi everyone, and thank you very much for being here with us. We are super excited today. Let us first introduce ourselves. So I'm Isabella Albinelli. I'm a bioeconomy specialist in the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and I'm here today with our partners in the project.
Yep. Hi, I'm Arthur de Dinesham, the founder of BioAni.
And also from colleague in HQ.
Hervé Lévit from the FAO Green City Initiative.
And we are here today with our project. Our project is BioDAF, is Circular Bioeconomy in Abidjan. And what we do is basically we turn waste into food security. So where this started, let me tell you a bit about the story. So this project takes place in Abidjan, is in Côte d'Ivoire, and was born through a request, a technical request for the local authorities to FAO, because they are facing 3 main challenges, among others. The huge quantity of organic waste, of bio-waste that is in the city. There is no efficient collection method or valorization of it. And farmers. Farmers are the heart of the city. They produce, urban and peri-urban farmers, the food that is consumed in the city, but they struggle. 75% of their income must be used to buy the agricultural input they need to produce the food. And of course, job creation in every fast-growing city in developing country. So we came up with a solution. It's a really peculiar solution, and we partner with our partners BioAni.
Yeah, hi. So the innovation is based looking at nature. It's an insect. It's a black soldier fly. And what we actually use of the black soldier fly is the larva. So the larva of the black soldier fly is a very hard worker, works 24/7 a day, 7 days a week, to convert the bio-waste into the 2 main components that agricultural needs. So it's the larva poop. So the frass is used as a fertilizer, and the process is very short. It's 14 days to go from waste to the fertilizer. And the larva itself, which is going to be used as a protein feed for the animals. So it's a whole package that we give to the farmers to produce their fruits, vegetables, and animals, and they can sell it back to the markets into the cities. So the BioDAF project in Abidjan is for the moment a 1,000 square meter farm where we convert every day 2 tons of organic waste that we collect through the markets. And with this, we can produce about 500 kilos of fertilizer and 200 kilos of protein, so the fertilizer to feed the soils. And we employ today 8 people on the farm, and we have trained a bit more than 10 people that will be the new insect farmers. It's the future people, we call them like this, to be the farmers of tomorrow. And we've seen that those inputs that goes out of our farm that we sell to the farmers enable them to decrease their prices by 40%. The fertilizer used gives life back to soil, so all the microorganisms, the insect and everything regenerates the soil, so it's 120 hectares, and we can feed every month 70 poultry farm. It's about 1,000 chicken per poultry farm.
But we don't want to stop here. So we have learned a lot of lessons in the past 2 years, and the impact were huge. But we would like to scale up this model. And we have learned from the farmers we have trained that they want to be the entrepreneurs in this model. They want to be at the forefront of this transformation. So we want to create a new model, or in Abidjan, in Bassam, a decentralized model. It's a model with 6 decentralized farms in which the farmers themselves will produce the larvae, so they will be at the center of the production. And these will allow us to enhance our impacts in terms of the impact that you two just presented. So will be doubled. But also this will put the farmer at the center. We reduce the cost. The farmer will be autosufficient, and we will increase climate resilience. What we will do is we will identify the farmers. We are actually already in contact with them. We will train them, and we will build the unit at their farm to convert the waste to the larvae. And then we will connect them to a central farm in a network of what we call insectpreneurs. This has a long-term sustainability because it creates a sort of snowball effect. With the revenues, we will create other decentralized farm. So the project will continue also in the future. And we will really encourage you to join our mission we harness nature. We harness something that is not high tech, is already there, it's already outside, is in the nature, to turn it to the waste into food security. We do this through the full empowerment of the farmer. And of course, this is our team, but we would like to tell that there are other two persons that are at the forefront of this project that are not with us today, especially Buchanan from the country office in Côte d'Ivoire, but also Fatou Matou, which is the R&D director. And we will so encourage you to join our ecosystem of support of this project, which is quite big, not just technical division and FAO. We are part of the flagship Green Cities initiative, but also partners on the ground. We have research center, university. We work with the NGO that work with cooperatives, and of course our partner BioNI. So I encourage you to support us, and please let us know if you have any question. And we're also circulating some sample of our larvae and our fertilizer, which are there. Don't smell them.
Thank you, Team FAO. Sorry, it's a little bit easy. Thank you very much, and for sticking to the 5 minutes. Very sharp, very, very sweet. And I think I learned a new word, insectpreneurs. I will be taking that with me. First, we will have 10 minutes for some feedback and some Q&A. So Muna, if you're there online, I think I saw you online. Please also feel free to ask questions. But maybe I'll turn to our in-person guests here and reviewers, Aki and Marketa, if there's anything that you'd like to say to the team.
Hello, and thank you. It has been amazing to see what's going on through these 3 days. And first of all, I want to congratulate you for that and for being so brave to take on this challenge. This is a really, really interesting and insightful presentation. Thinking about a few years forward, scaling in 5 to 10 years, I know this is a difficult question, but I wanted to know, who do you see as the major future partners? How do you want to manage the ecosystem of them, especially to create resilience? Thank you.
I can start and then you can integrate. So we have a quite strong idea for the future of this initiative. We think that especially through this model should, and I hope will, be taken up by municipalities. This should be a public good that municipality provide to citizens, to farmers especially, because it cleans the city, acts as a waste management unit for the public municipalities, while providing to farmers, cooperative, local farmers, urban and peri-urban farmers, especially in developing countries, cheap, sustainable, and locally produced agricultural inputs, because most of the farmers rely on imported agricultural inputs, which are costly, and we know what are the effects of the misuse of those. So our partners, we are looking for a municipality. We have an agreement with the BioDAF project with the district of Abidjan, and we are getting an agreement for the scaling up of this new project with the mayor of Bassam. We have a public-private partnership with BioNI and the local authorities that ensure also more stability for the future. But also we envision this to be taken up, and this is also our mission, by cooperative of farmers at rural level. And we partner with BioNI because BioNI has the technical know-how. They train farms since quite a long time. And we can see that these farmers with this low technology, which is not high-tech, doesn't require a lot of know-how, can really be empowered and independent and ensure much food security. And I'm not talking about the soils.
I want to talk about the soils. We had the city of Espoo. You are a green city. You consider yourself as a green city. This is what we want to develop, especially in African cities with FAO. Why? Because of course, you have all this phenomenon of expansion, urban expansion at the moment, with a lot of people coming to cities, so they need shelters. And of course, these cities are extremely fragile in terms of climate shocks. And we see everywhere in the world flooding everywhere, especially in West Africa. This is a disaster. So what we promote in the Green City Initiative of FAO is what we call green infrastructures, meaning parks, but also peri-urban agriculture with lively soils. Because when you have a lively soils, you have infiltration of water. So it's extremely important to develop on these issues with such partners that will give fertility to the soils. And what we work on is looking for funders, because this is a climate issue. So the green climate funds, for example, are ready also to support such initiatives.
Yes, thanks. Very interesting, good example of a nature-based solution. A few questions, maybe more out of ignorance. The fly itself, the prevalence of that specific fly in the country, in the region, and so on. Can you rely on that fly to scale the solution elsewhere as well, or are there other insects you could potentially use? And then second question, out of all the needs that an individual farmer has, what's the share that you could meet through this solution in terms of fertilizer, protein needs, and so on? So how far does it go in a way?
It's one of the fastest conversion. She's got the faster conversion rate of bio waste, but also she's all around the globes, around all the tropics, so Africa, Asia, Southern America. This is why we chose it. You've got different types of insects, the molitor and other stuff like this, but they don't convert the same, they don't have the same conversion ratio, and you don't find them everywhere. So this is why we chose it, and it's very adaptable. And for the second question, you need two things for an agriculture to work. So for a farmer, so you need to fertilize his soils very, very well, and you need to feed the animals. But the thing is, what they don't teach them in agriculture is going to grow. You have to feed all the microorganisms around the soils and in the soils, because otherwise it's like giving you just protein but nothing else, which is not good. You're going to have problems growing up. So it's the same thing. So in the fertilizer, what's very good in it is you've got microbial organism and mushrooms and everything that will feed the soils and bring life back to the soils. And what I like to say is the more you put it in time, the less you need it in quantities. So, yeah. And for the moment, we have in our farms 180 hectares, and for the future farms that we're going to build, it's going to be 6 farmers, but in each farm you're going to have more than 5 people working. They're going to produce, each of them, about 10 to 15 tons of fertilizer, which is going to be distributed around the farms to fertilize about 10 to 20 hectares of soils.
Any other questions from the audience?
Thank you, Mira. Hey, I have a quick question. When you were showing like the impact data on the numbers, I was wondering like how it is this connection like more clearly with like the farmers struggle that you put it in the job creation. Like, do you have any data or at least an estimation on how those numbers that you shown there actually reflect on actual change or like a economic turnover for those farmers? Like how that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. So we actually wanted to put a slide on this, but was too much for the 5 minutes. So in terms of impacts, what we have shown you before. So maybe we can quickly go through it. Yes. So with the new model, this is gonna nearly be doubled, the data that you see. So these will be the impacts of the new model. But the fact is that this new model is much more cost effective than this BioDAF farm that we have built. It requires a much lower investment, almost 1/3 of the investment that we have put in this model. It employs 30 people instead of 10, and it has a multiplier effect. So the direct beneficiaries will be, of course, the farmer that will be employed there. We will work with women cooperatives. We have already in partnership with an NGO in the same site in which we are hoping to build this new model that support fragile women and fragile youth. So we would like to employ them, and we're already in agreement. They are super interested. So direct beneficiary, the farmers, the cooperatives, and also the farmer cooperative around each 6 farm, because we will enhance our impact. And this model is easy to be replicable, is easy to be taken up by municipality themselves and by cooperatives. So, and this is for now in Côte d'Ivoire, these black soldier fly models, there are a few around the world actually, but these can be replicated in each condition as far as you have, I guess, good weather, like you don't need internal infrastructure, which we're just seeing that there is one actually here in Finland, one black soldier fly a startup producing with bioreactors, so internally. And it's low tech, it doesn't need a lot of knowledge, and can really put farmers at the forefront of solving environmental, social, and economic challenges at the same time. So.
Yeah, and there's a reality. I've been living in Abidjan for 7 years, Africa for 30 years. And there's a reality is that the soils are getting worse and worse, and everything that the farmer needs, so the fertilizer and protein, comes from abroad. The fertilizer comes from Holland, the protein from Brazil or Asia. So if there's a crisis, we've seen it during COVID, everything crashed there. And they could not source the feed. They could not do anything. They can't produce because the lands are poor. They can't produce because nothing is created locally. So with this, we empower them and we make them resilient to any climate change or any crisis in the world. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the questions. We actually have one question from our virtual reviewer, Mona, and that will be the last question before we move on to the next team. So Mona, feel free to unmute yourself, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the presentations and lovely to be with you. Very quick 2 questions. Did you find similar projects or initiatives implemented globally, or what did you learn from that? The second question is, what would be the risks? Are there any risks that can come from this innovative project, and how are you going to mitigate these risks from an environmental perspective and health perspective as well? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, you've got other farms in the world. You've got, especially around the tropics, more and more coming to life. They've got a different approach than us, but it's something that actually works. It's been done. You've got some here in Finland. You've got some in Europe too, but it's new, so everything has to be learned about it. And yeah.
And sorry, really, thank you very much for your question. I just want to add to this that also the innovation is to take this model that already exists and put it at the services of a city, of a district in Abidjan and now as a public good, and also putting the farmers at the center of this. So there are many private sector companies doing this. Here, the innovation lies also in putting this at the services of the communities and of the cities. And for the second question, the risk. So thanks also to these 3 days, honestly, we have understood that for us it's really important to have political support, especially from municipality. So that's why we already had a chat with the mayor of Bassam, but we are going to strengthen this relationship because it's essential for the long-term sustainability and also for the exit of a bit of the BioDAF project to like empower farmers to do it by themselves.
Yes, and for the risk, we can add that we have partnerships with local universities and with international centers like the CIRAD.
Thank you very much, FAO, and thank you for the questions. Well done. Okay. And if you can just give us a quick 20 seconds to set up for the next slide. We will be hearing from IOM Mexico with their project, Comunidad Aves. And they will be presenting to government community centers located at Mexico's southern border.
Bill. So imagine that for the last 9 months, you have been living in a migrant shelter with other 1,500 persons in Tijuana, Mexico's border with the US, and you cannot cross the border because it is too risky, and you cannot go back to your home country because a hurricane has taken everything away. So time goes by, nothing changes, and then the director of the shelter tells you that you need to leave the shelter because there are some other people that need that help as well. And you have heard rumors that migrants cannot work in Mexico, and if you cannot work, then how you are going to afford housing, food, and the healthcare that you need. So you feel alone, and you feel uncertain about where to ask for help without risking detention by the Mexican immigration authorities. So one day, you're walking through the local market, seeking desperately for a job, and then an old Mexican lady listens to you and asks you, like, "Are you okay, mijita? Where are you from?" And when she realizes that you are not Mexican, then she talks you about a community center nearby where she met other women from your country while taking a piñata making workshop. And then she tells you that that day, there's a job fair going on there. So you trust her and you go with her to the community center. Inside the community center, you find everything that you were looking for: opportunities, job opening, medical care, emotional support, legal orientation, food, and guidance on free housing services. So by the end of the day, you feel connected to opportunities, connected to that kind old lady, and connected to the possibility of a new beginning in Mexico.
Stories like these happen every day at Comunidad Aves. For the last year, we have benefited more than 4,000 persons, both from Mexican population and also migrant population, in these two community centers that are located in the northern border in Ciudad Juárez and Tijuana, which address real barriers that affect both Mexican and also migrant population. These barriers include navigating complex health system, trying to understand social services, and the challenge to try to reach really complex administrative process. Moreover, migrants face stigma, discrimination, isolation, which lead them to be alone to the community and is reaching and reducing the possibility to contribute and belong. Comunidad Aves address these barriers head on. It recognizes that access to healthcare, social integration, and mental health support are fundamental rights and not just privileges. Beyond just providing services, Aves community is committed to shifting perception within host communities, reducing stigma, and more than that, building trust. This dual focus, first on practical support and social cohesion, is what makes Comunidad Aves properly effective.
Right now, we're two drops that ripple across Ciudad Juárez and Tijuana. Like the story at the beginning, we see community building. They expand beyond the walls of the physical space. The proper communities themselves begin to replicate the community building strategies outside, focusing on migrant populations and local populations. Imagine that Comunidad Aves expands, that we reach a steady reign of community support across the country. All the initiatives, all the community building will be shared. We'll be sharing resources, we'll be sharing initiatives, and you'll be able to form a part of an extensive network of more than 80 allies in academia, NGOs, private sector, international organizations, and government agencies. Comunidad Aves is a statement of coordination, is a statement of a unifying force and a testament to the value and the importance of having a cohesive humanitarian response all across the country. Comunidad Aves works by pushing ahead all the cohesive innovations that we find day to day, and we expand that across the country. So what we want is in a network of alliances and community centers to ripple across the whole country. And thank you so much. My name is Iñaki Campos Buenaga. I'm a senior associate for the Humanitarian Response and Recovery Unit. I'm with my colleagues.
Hi, thanks to all for giving us this opportunity to talk about our project. I am Alondra Ragongama. I am coordinating the Migration and Health Unit at the Mexican Mission. And we are really glad to be here and to share with you all the story.
And hello, my name is Marijo Juarez. I am the head of IOM's field office at Tijuana, and welcome to Comunidad Aves.
Thank you, IOM Mexico. And thank you for being that guiding light to migrant communities who might feel a bit lost in the system and providing them that support. Now we're open to questions, again, to the in-person reviewers. And again, Muna as well, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves.
Thank you. And first of all, congratulations. I know these have been tough days, and I'm so proud of your team going through all of this and getting new insights. I have actually a question about something we were working on. This is related to the futures, potential futures. So I wanted to ask you, what do you see as the main risks, challenges, and maybe even opportunities when thinking about political, economical, legal, environmental changes that we could project? Thank you.
Yes, so right now we're obviously facing a lot of uncertain times, right? We're having a new political shift paradigm in the U.S. and in Mexico, and there's a lot of unknowns, right? Obviously, that affects directly how we can manage these both community centers on a resource-based thinking, financial power that we can get to manage these spaces, depending on what either the government of Mexico or the government of the United States really wants, we could just stop any day like that, right? So I think that we're doing right now is trying to expand on that, and more than IOM managing these spaces, what we want is to have partners that they themselves manage the proper spaces. So we see ourselves as a agent of change for migrant and local communities, but also we want to be a facilitator of organization between different NGOs and different humanitarian assistance organizations and integration organizations, right?
Well, coming back to what we are seeing us and trying to think about risk is why we see Comunidad Aves these two drops, because we don't want to be the solution. What we want to create is a way to shift the community, a way to reduce fragmentation and isolation from migrant population. That's why we decide to also include host communities, because we realize more and more that as we are continue segregating population, then we are not going to actually try to change myths and all these ideas that can come to a political position. What we think is even, or what we want is even if we have to stop, there are community centers all around Mexico that are actually working from the government. So we want to include this model that we are creating, this idea of also integrate migrant population into this community center. In that case, if we have to close tomorrow because of these uncertain times, we know that the ripples of Comunidad Aves are going to continue in the hands of our allies and on the government.
Any other questions, comments from the audience?
Hi, thanks very much for your presentation. I would like to ask if you had some challenges when you established Comunidad Aves in Tijuana. What were the biggest challenges and how did you address those challenges? Thanks.
Well, actually, I wanted to share with you that Comunidad Aves was born through a different project where we were facing the pandemic COVID era. And with that project, it consisted on, for instance, renting a hotel so that the migrants that were arriving to Tijuana and that the shelters did not want to take them because they were afraid of the COVID. Then we offered like this quarantine for these 2 weeks, for the migrant population. And during this project was very successful because we offer different kinds of services, health services, among others, with more than 50 institutions. But the big mistake that we did, it was that we did not include the host community to that project. So when we started that project in the COVID era, even the neighbors were like very angry and were thinking that we were bringing like COVID to this zone. So with this big, huge lesson, we began Comunidad Aves with a big new brand beginning. So since the first day, we are involving the community, and the community itself has now become an ambassador of Comunidad Aves. And this story that we shared about this old abuelita, this old lady, it is true. They are our biggest ambassadors, and they are in the community, just like also like seeking migrants if they see them, and then they come together to Comunidad Aves, and then that allows us to maintain this kind of project. And maybe just like the challenge is, how are we going to sustain the project, and how are we going to keep growing this kind of network? Because today we are more than 60 institutions, organizations, academia, private sector in Tijuana, and we want to get even bigger.
So thank you. A very feel-good story and very inspiring work that you're doing. As you showed the image of the art that the participants had made, the question arose for me about whether there is a commercial opportunity for these individuals, because you're bringing together a group of very diverse individuals with interesting language skills And although the thinking at the moment is this is a community center and there are job opening postings, perhaps, I wondered, in a world where business outsource services are increasingly digital, virtual, remote, whether you've thought about the commercial opportunities of giving this new group of people some kind of productive activity that would then make the project more sustainable.
Yes, that's one of our focus right now. We actually have various different projects that go with that. This one right here, this is a piñata workshop. Sorry, this is a piñata workshop that it was done like 2 weeks ago. Half of them are from the Mexican community, and half of them are from a shelter nearby. And yeah, they got all the skills to know how to make piñatas. But we also have plumbery workshops for like vocational workshops, and after that they actually go directly to a job database where they can get connected directly with organizations that are looking for plumbers, right? We also have workshops that go into how to make binders and how to make yeah, and we also have gardening initiatives. There's a part in the Tijuana community center that it's a garden, right? So what we're doing is integrating that knowledge that comes from our partners. One of our partners is called Ecoparque, and they deal with how to teach people gardening and how to buy and sell the crops and how to grow them sustainably.
Yeah, and also what we are doing now is include as an ally probably, I don't know if this is correct, the national labor system that we have in Mexico. So from that, actually this dependency from the government can offer job opportunities to the migrant population and Mexican population. So while we are creating new abilities to create self jobs, we are also trying to take this dependency with us to offer the opportunities all around and to create pathways for migrant population to get into the economic system in Mexico.
And like what Alondra was saying, this was last week. We have a job fair. We had over 300 open vacancies for jobs. And obviously we coordinated with a bunch of different UN agencies, with local government and a lot of shelters and local communities, right? Some of the results from this fair were about 80 people got a job, and some others got introduced back into the education system because there were opportunities to continuing the education that some of, especially our older beneficiaries, could get. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I think that's all the questions we have. Thank you again to IOM Mexico and Comunidad Aves. Next up, we will be hearing from the ITC team, and they'll be presenting to potential funding partners their digital freelancing toolkit.
Where can we stand here? There we go. So you can click it on. Okay. Let's go. Next slide. This is Hope Hub. It's one of the many locations where aspiring freelancers, many of whom are women, as you can see, come to get internet access and try to find work online. This one happens to be in Gaza, but there's many like it around the world. What's important to notice here is that these people have skills. They're graphic designers, they're translators, they're project managers, they're administrative assistants, content writers, digital marketers, transcribers, and more. They have bank accounts. And yet, many of them, the majority, in fact, over 50%, fail to ever secure their first online gig. Why? Well, simply because they lack the soft skills to effectively sell themselves online to international clients. So how do we solve this? Well, small hubs like the Hope Hub here are great, but they're also small. What's more, most aspiring freelancers, digital freelancers around the world, do not have access to even small hubs like this. The people you're seeing here are in some ways actually the lucky ones. This is why we at ITC are building a one-stop shop support platform, which we call the Digital Freelancing Toolkit. Through it, we'll provide resources, training, and networking, both online and offline. And not only to hubs and associations like this one, but also directly to freelancers and aspiring freelancers themselves. What's more, we'll partner with leading training organizations from around the world to assist also with the quote-unquote hard skills that freelancers in emerging economies need to upskill and remain relevant in the international job market over time. So, where will we be in 2030?
In 2030, Digital Freelancing Toolkit will have given 100,000 people from emerging economies the tools to connect and work online. Tens of thousands of them will access online work platforms to connect with international clients and sell their skills successfully online. For the first time, a new generation of workers from developing and least developed countries will be able to earn internationally competitive salaries in a foreign currency. This will greatly improve the lives of themselves and of their families. Hubs such as Hope Hub will be better capacitated than ever before. They will have access to up-to-date training materials on both soft and hard freelancing skills, and they will be able to deliver those trainings to their members with ITC's assistance. Well, that's by 2030. What can we commit to doing by this time next year? Well, by this time next year, we will have built a freely accessible online freelancing support platform with over 20 hours of course content on both soft and hard freelancing skills. We will have concluded a number of partnerships with private sector actors, and together we will be able to support the freelancers and accompany them in their freelancing journey. Our target is 5,000 new freelancers capacitated by the end of 2025. And already starting from February 24 of this year, our pilot freelancing program has already 500 graduates, and about 100 of them have been able to make a living online. So as you can hear, we're just getting started.
So make no mistake here. We, the International Trade Center, are ideally placed to do this. We are the UN agency tasked with supporting small enterprises to connect with international value chains by bringing businesses to international trade fairs, enabling connections, facilitating investment. On the training side, we have an extensive experience with local partners in delivering via a training of trainers approach, and including hubs, we are delivering at scale. Also, on the digital realm, we have, via our SME Trade Academy, already a community of over 200,000 learners actively in the platform and beyond 1 million cumulative enrollments in it. We are then the UN agency that is most successful in delivering e-learning trainings and online. We are even applying AI already to make this incorporated and also for incorporated in AI tutoring. So we have the tools. What we are missing is to scale. So help us level the playing field by opening the digital freelancer market to everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to the Global Pulse, City of Espoo, the University of Aalto, and our team, last but not least, Adriana De Oro, Innovation Lead at the International Trade Center.
Michelle Fu as Junior Professional Officer in the Tech Sector Development Team.
And Guillaume Lamotte from the SME Trade Academy. I build e-learning programs.
Thank you very much. And you know the drill by now. Time for some questions and feedback.
Okay, thank you. First question. Just trying to understand correctly how this works. So, are you developing something that will link the applicants with existing opportunities provided on existing platforms, or are you also developing something that can link them to potential sort of, I don't know, local companies or, you know, organizations offering jobs, or your partners, you know, directly? Is it just about increasing their capacity to access what's out there already, or are you also sort of creating new partnerships? And then second question, how are you preparing? I mean, you mentioned AI, but AI is of course also a threat in this space, in the sense of many of these sort of freelancing jobs are being replaced by AI. I mean, especially if we look towards, you know, the next 5 years or so, it doesn't look necessarily all that great in terms of what's going to be available and how these sort of more micro jobs are being taken over by AI models and those tools. But how do you prepare people for that kind of future as well?
Maybe I'll answer the last question first, and then you can take. Okay. So to start with the second question first, that's a very good question. I mean, there's a lot of debate as to what AI is going to do in the next 12 months. We're using it already in the learning, but to specifically your question, how are we preparing freelancers to deal with AI? So there's the maximalist view of AI that within the next 5 years, freelancing will be completely gone and none of that will happen. There's little we can do about that, but we mentioned we have a pilot course on freelancing that's already got 500 graduates. Well, we're currently, as we speak, building a second course, and that second course is freelancing in AI. We're working with an American AI expert called Matthew Schlicht. He's in California. You can look him online. He's got a YouTube channel. He's quite active, and he's helping us prepare a course specifically to help freelancers prepare to deal with AI. We are scheduled for publication in either January or February. We'll see how things go. It'll be either late January, early February. So we are trying to prepare our freelancers to use AI, because what we're saying is there's a saying, it's a little bit facetious, but I think there's a lot of truth in it, which is that AI is not going to replace you. The person who knows how to use AI better than you is going to replace you. And so we're trying to teach our freelancers how to use AI in their work exactly so they don't get replaced. And then with the first question, at the moment, it's very much the former. We're not aiming to replace Upwork or Freelancer or Fiverr. These platforms know what they're doing. They're very good. The problem we were encountering the problem we identified and the solution that we developed during the pilot was very much that people would create an account. And there's simple things, but they're not that simple, actually. How to create a nice looking profile photo, how to write a CV that somebody might actually want to take a look at, how to organize your portfolio, how to communicate with clients. You know, people send clients, international clients, one-sentence emails. So how to write professional emails, things like that. That's what we're doing for the moment. But there is a longer-term vision, which maybe you guys want to comment on. And
thanks so much. Indeed, our team has been training people mostly in sub-Saharan Africa on digital skills, so no-code, WordPress, how to use web development, and so on and so forth. Indeed, what Guillaume has touched upon is that they do not know how to present themselves or sell themselves online, how to talk to clients, to customers, to negotiate for deals, how to combat scams even. So therefore, this one-stop shop is aimed to support the freelancers by offering resources, so the online courses, links to content platforms such as Coursera, Udemy, and so on, and also connecting them with those work platforms, and we will offering them actually a new user base that they can address in developing countries. And finally, also to payment platforms, because you may be able to do all the work you can, but how do you get paid? And especially in Africa, whereby it is difficult to access a credit card and other more digital versions of money and payment. So this is the solutions that we are offering through the Digital Freelancing Toolkit.
Thank you. Congratulations. These have been very interesting days, and we have heard a lot about your insights as well. So maybe I know a little bit more than some of the reviewers here. I have a specific question based on the conversations, and that is, I would like to understand a little bit better when you talk about partnerships, what that entails, and specifically, what is it for the private sector partnerships that you were mentioning? What is in it for them? What's their incentive in participating this in like short term and even long term when we think about scaling?
Thank you so much. Indeed, for the private sector partnerships, we are looking to aim at the big, larger digital corporations such as AWS, even Microsoft, so they can help us also overcome this higher need of closing a digital divide. And below that, we want to have everybody on board who has a heart to give access to the young populations that are growing and growing to meet this demand of digitally skilled people. As Guillaume has mentioned, with AI, it's changing the workplace. We know that it will automate a lot of jobs, but then again, it provides an opportunity for those young people to work in this field. So aside from the larger corporations, we have the online work platforms, Fiverr, freelancer.com, Guru, but there are also some local platforms that also target regional or national needs that may be specific for these countries. And then finally, the payment methods, we're looking at PayPal, Payoneer, Wise, and Gray. But then again, there are also local initiatives, local fintechs that we support through our programs that may be able to help and offer solutions to get paid.
Yeah, if I might add, just on the implementing partner side as well, there is a very crucial partner that is the business support organizations or the hubs locally that are already delivering trainings to freelancers, but then actually with the Digital Freelancing Toolkit, they can enhance the resources that they possess to actually deliver it to more people, to reach more graduates and potential freelancers.
And just to directly address what you raised, what's in it for them? So as my colleagues mentioned, there's essentially two types of partners that we are envisaging. One of them is an actual partner that we actually have now. Those are the hubs, like the Hope Hub that I showed you, people similar to that. What's in it for them is they get access to free, high-quality training content that they can give to their beneficiaries. It's just an added bonus for them. They already have people who are coming to their hub to get this kind of support. We're just giving them better tools to run their place better. And so far, that's worked very well. So far, people have been super happy, and this is why we've been encouraged to continue and grow this pilot and scale it. The second type of private sector partners, what we call sort of content partners, partners who would help us by providing us more training content, more resources, etc. Those are the private sector companies. And there's a variety of motivations that might be used to induce private sector companies to partner with the UN. We are open to all sorts of motivations to encourage them.
Thank you, reviewers. We also have a question from Muna. So Muna, feel free to unmute yourself and turn your video on if you like and ask your question.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting idea. I have a couple of questions. One is about the infrastructure, the tech infrastructure, like connectivity, devices, and all that. How do you think you can address that, especially in areas that like there are challenges related to that? And I saw that you mentioned in the first picture that one of the centers in Gaza. So in conflict areas and war zones, how would and it's clear that it can continue for a long time. So how would you address that with maybe with your partners and so on? And also the money transfer, you mentioned that you have different channels of transferring money, but sometimes it becomes really challenging. And we work with partners in Gaza right now, and it's almost impossible to transfer money to these places. So I don't know if you just consider the conflict, working in conflict zones and restricted areas, like in the context of the Middle East or maybe other places in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if I understand your question correctly, you're asking about the local infrastructure. So how do we ensure that people can access the online resources? Is that correct? Right, in the humanitarian settings. Okay,
yes.
Great.
Yes, in the humanitarian setting. Yes, thank you.
So one thing that was very helpfully raised throughout this workshop was the idea of designing for the future. And we've been in this space of delivering online and digitally enabled training for almost 10 years now. And 10 years ago, the infrastructure question is a question we got all the time. None of these people have internet. None of these people have laptops. How can you reach them? How can they engage with you? And 10 years later, this is still a question we're getting, but the situation has improved massively. So there is a reality, which is that if somebody does not have electricity and absolutely does not have internet, they will not be able to benefit from the platform, but they also will not be able to be a digital freelancer. So those are not our target audience. Our target audience are people who have access to electricity, have a laptop, have a way to connect online. We are beginning to experiment now with access such as Starlink, which can give low-cost internet access to people who previously did not have it. But this is just something we're starting. This is not a main part of what we are doing. Our experience, we were just starting work in Gaza recently. I personally have. And our experience has been rather good in that it's surprising how resilient they are. And that even in a situation like this, they're still managing to get online, get electricity, work with generators, and work with us. Money transfer is an issue. We're currently working through a wire transfer to do these. But there's no one size fits all. It really depends on the situation. In some cases, it's easier. In some cases, it's harder. There's no generalizations to be made there, and it has to be on a case-by-case basis. This is also why we want to partner with local hubs, because we don't have all the knowledge from Geneva, and we want to ask them how they think is the best way that we can provide them with resources.
Yeah, definitely. I can cite the example of the Dadaab and Kakuma refugee camps in Kenya, where we have worked actually with freelancers and via humanitarian partners as well. We were, of course, partnering with UNHCR and the Norwegian Refugee Council in that case. And we were delivering the trainings on the community centers that had the connectivity that would enable them to connect, well, to have access to the trainings and also to come back and work from there, that were fully equipped with computers that they could use at their times of when they needed them. Also, they were purchasing, of course, credit for entering and accessing the internet. And many of them, as they were earning from the community centers, they were able to already buy their own equipment, their own laptops. We prefer to do this in that way than, just follow the market-based approach than just giving them laptops. And they were also even, some of them purchased these solar-powered antennas that would enable them also to have electricity in their homes. So we know it's possible with the right partnerships and the right ecosystems locally.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Very comprehensive responses. And thank you to the reviewers for their questions. Well done. Again, one more time. Okay. So we will be hearing from the remaining 4 teams. But first up, it's International Organization for Migration, the HQ team, who will be presenting to humanitarian communities. with their innovation project, DTM Data Kit. Take it away.
Thank you, Pat. Good morning all. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Rob. I'm from the DTM team along with my colleague Alvina and Chun. And today we're speaking about a better way to monitor displacement and human need. So very quickly, we're from the UN Migration Agency, better known as the International Organization for Migration, IOM. And our mandate is to support the humane migration management, as well as providing humanitarian services to those that have been forcibly displaced in crises. More specifically, we're part of the Displacement Tracking Matrix team, DTM, and our job is to provide actionable information on the ground on numbers, locations of people that have been forcibly displaced, their vulnerability, their needs, so humanitarian actions and services can be informed and planned around that data. We have a global team, 6 regional offices, and we have DTM program teams across 100 different IOM missions. And this year we were recommended as the core service provider on IDP data across the sector. So IDP, the internally displaced persons are on the rise, and our DTM country teams, so DTM Ukraine, DTM Sudan, are working tirelessly to provide information on displaced persons through conflict, through natural disasters, their needs, their vulnerabilities, their locations. So direct humanitarian intervention can be provided to them. That information is often picked up by media, and you see our numbers being reported on Lebanon, Sudan, Ethiopia, Nigeria. In 2022, during President Biden's visit to the Ukraine-Poland border, DTM Ukraine's data was part of the briefing package on what was going on in the region there. So right now, this is kind of what DTM global teams look like. They're pieces of a puzzle and all working immensely well, as seen from the previous slide, but they don't necessarily always fit together. When they were set up, they weren't necessarily designed to fit together. DTM Ukraine wasn't necessarily designed to fit with DTM Papua New Guinea, for example. However, you can't look at displacement from an individual country perspective. You can't understand displacement in Sudan because of the civil war without understanding the impacts on human mobility and needs in Chad and Ethiopia as a result. You can't understand the impact on displacement in Ukraine without understanding the impact on human mobility and needs in Poland and Hungary and across Europe. So what the DTM global team are doing, we're really just trying to nurture that connectedness and support the pieces of the puzzle being designed at inception phase to fit a little bit better together. So our vision is that the pieces of the puzzle just fit together a little bit better to give that holistic picture of displacement, whether within an accumulation of a few countries, regionally, or globally. And this is essentially the tool that we're looking to facilitate that connectedness. So this is the data kit, and this is designed by the global team in conjunction with a huge amount of our country teams. And this is a field-facing kit designed at every step of the data collection phase that our country teams do. So it's an augmentation into pre-existing operations. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, we're just trying to fit it into the process. And the question bank is essentially a cataloged library of questions that have been field tested and stress tested in different contexts, whether it's evacuation center assessments or whether it's conflict in urban areas assessments, that then country teams can pull and drop, design their information needs, deploy the surveys in the field, and all of the questions and information we get back is properly codified, it's categorized, it's systematically structured, and then it goes for a number of checks and then uploaded to our central kind of data lake and our consolidation. So it's really just kind of easing the process of how things fit together. Our scaling plan in green is what we've done. So we developed a scaling strategy at the beginning of the year, and then we rolled out the kit to a number of, firstly at the global level, trainers of trainers, and then to the regional offices in East and Southern Africa and Western Southern Africa. We go to Cairo in 10 days to do the Middle East and North Africa. We have the Americas in January, and then we have Europe in March. Asia is TBC, and by June of next year, we're looking to have the institutionalization of the data kit by the IOM Executive Office. So this is no longer like, please use it. This is more, if you're running a DTM operation, then there's a compliance to it to ensure that data is properly structured. And just to circle back, We know the future is uncertain. We know that displacement will grow. We know that there'll be unprecedented human mobility, particularly with climate, but also the world is digitizing. There's an increase in data. The UN has lent into that, and we believe that improving data will improve response and improve preparedness. And that is the data kit.
Thank you. Spot on. I was about to tell you your 5-minute mark. So open to questions again from the reviewers. Yeah, Aki.
Sure. Thank you very much. To the point, I think. Very good presentation. In terms of what this enables you to do, can you speak to that a little bit in terms of how better data can enable better insights for you about what's going on in the field, and how you can then feed those insights back to your work in the field, to your staff in these contexts? What will this, I mean, it's not only about the toolkit itself or data collection, right? It's something that will then enable you as an organization to manage things better, to be more prepared, etc. So how does that process, how will this help your process, you know, or you along that journey? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a great question. So basically, we've kind of been doing that, but we've been having to kind of manually put the puzzle pieces together. So for example, to understand displacement trends across, you know, how may displacement change in Ethiopia over the next 5 years, you want to like kind of look historically backwards to understand where like flooding may have happened or when conflict tensions have happened. So historically, we've had to like concatenate all the different data sets together. We've had to kind of push the different work together to kind of get that insight to understand, okay, this is where this migration corridor may become higher or lower, and or across regions. So the insights kind of being generated, this is just taking kind of the manual intensity to put that data set, kind of, it reduces the human kind of retrofitting and alignment with the intention to kind of do that insight and foresight. It also, the way we structure the data, it also makes it kind of more available to kind of incorporate other data sets. And what I mean by that is like displacement is just one part of the picture. If you want to look at movement in Eastern Horn Africa, you need to include rainfall data, you need to include vegetation indices data, you need topographic data, where roads are closed, where transport networks, where markets are. And by having kind of better structured data on just the displacement, like we're trying to connect our displacement pieces of the puzzle together, but displacement is also just a picture of a broader puzzle in terms of human mobility. So it also kind of plays into that aspect as well.
Thank you, and congratulations for everything you have done for this week and the presentation as well. I was interested to hear a little bit more about the how you get this into usage within the IOM and beyond the IOM system, because I think this is a kind of data for the whole humanitarian network, right? What are your experiences so far? How do you explain the benefits? Is it easy to get others along? How do you see, might you want to change something in your communication to get others along?
Right. I would say that so far there's a lot of need, and everyone sees the gap that we have with the way that we are managing our data. So as we go to the regions, trying to implement and deploy, get adaptation to the system, everyone is already keen, because if you go to the regional office, they do not understand migration within their own region, because everyone has, it's like everyone is in silos. So the buy-in is pretty huge, and also the humanitarian is also trusting and waiting on us to inform them so that they can make decisions. So I would say in that case, we would have challenges a bit, because people have a way of doing things that they have been doing so far, and that change might take time, but also the kit incorporated that, and we've added in what we call the validator, which basically helps you to kind of integrate the same way that you were doing to the new way of doing it.
Yeah. So we've designed, I mean, one of the one of the issues with, say, HQ-driven initiatives is this a perception of top-down, super heavy, reporting upwards, et cetera, et cetera. So we've designed, so the 5 tools that we showed have been developed in many kind of consultations and design sprints with our kind of country colleagues, like, hey, what do you need? What will make your life easier? So that's a way to get buy-in. The IOM, like I'm sure many other UN agencies, like we go through the whole turnover aspect. So there is a little bit of like, you work with one key stakeholder in a country, they move on, then you kind of have to restart that process. There's not much we can do about that. But when we do communicate it back, it's also communicated value add. So when you design your particular tools on our system, then all the validation checks is to do with the compliance per the system. So it can actually make like the downstream process easier. So kind of saying, hey, if you start to adopt, you also kind of get benefits A, B, C, and D as well. And that's kind of landed as well, particularly for the colleagues who weren't necessarily in the early design phases, because this has been going on for about 2.5 years now. So like colleagues who have kind of engaged in the last 12 months, the hook seems to land a bit more on the value add rather than the ownership aspect.
Thank you very much. I was very happy to hear you talk about the upstream data, the drivers of migration around climate and food security and all the rest of it. And that sort of leads to the other end of the spectrum, which is in the COVID period, we saw the likes of Johns Hopkins University and the World Health Organization develop sort of a real-time global dashboard tool that certainly in our part of the world, everyone was going to and trying to understand what's going on.
It was amazing.
I guess the question would be, what is in your mind, what's the sort of holy grail of migration monitoring? What does that look like in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, well, firstly, we listened to your session. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, so we try and provide actionable information to drive humanitarian interventions. We started our life in the Department of Operation and Emergencies as the team to provide humanitarian intelligence to drive interventions. We've then since evolved out of the Department of Operations to broader kind of support cross-cutting across IOM as work on migration. There is a fine line between monitoring and surveillance. And we as kind of humanitarians first must be very aware that like our information is primarily there to support the mandate of IOM and our UN partners. So we want to provide that kind of actionable information. But we don't need to know if Elvina is displaced. We just need to know that maybe someone of a vulnerability that may need support is located here, rather than saying Chol is there, Elvina is here, Rob is there. So we don't want to go that far because you know people have their rights, and to inform interventions, you don't need to go there. So the holy grail is not knowing at any point who's moving at any given time. I think our holy grail is knowing where the key vulnerability hotspots based on human bullying displacement are, and agencies like the WFPs, the WHOs, the UNICEFs of the world kind of include our data as part of their decision-making framework. Our data set isn't going to solve the world, but we want it to be a key piece of the decision-making process globally, regionally, and country level. And we kind of have that at country level because our countries work a little bit independently of one another, but decisions now are being made more and more regional and more global level. And as displacement goes up and resources go down, and that may happen even more based on what is happening in the world, then prioritization on hotspots is going to become a larger topic. So I think understanding the role displacement mobility plays in that, in the decision making, I think that will be our holy grail. Not to know where everyone on the planet is moving at a given point. That's not where we want to go.
Thank you very much. Thank you to IOM HQ. It's a bit like a cycle, isn't it? Better preparedness to collect data, for better intelligence, for better preparedness. So thank you very much again. A round of applause. We have 3 more teams, and the next one that we'll be hearing from is from the UN country team from Colombia, who will talk about the Joint Territorial Solutions Lab and will be presenting to donors.
Okay, before we start, good morning, everyone. Good morning, donors, CEOs, and ambassadors. Welcome to this presentation. I want to introduce our team. This is Natalie and Tristan. They are from the Resident Coordinator Office, and I'm Catalina Rojas. I'm from WFP. I want to thank UN Global Pulse, the Espoo City, and Aalto University for this opportunity. Okay, let's get started. Well, I wanna start with showing you a new tool, and it's going to be a tool that will make your money worth more. This is Buenaventura. Buenaventura is a city of contrast. It's the second largest port of Colombia, but it has a huge amount of youth unemployment. It's 4 times the national rate. It has high poverty. It has gang violence. It has drug trafficking. But we've done a lot of investment in that city. We have had years and decades of efforts. We have international community over there. We have donor resources. We have the government, and we have the agencies there. It's been almost $15 million that have been investment from the UN, and still there are no changes. We still have humanitarian needs, we still have conflict and violence, and we still have development challenges with SDG gaps. Why do you think that it's happening? Why we don't see structural changes in Buenaventura?
So we ask ourselves and our key stakeholders that question, and almost everybody, the community, the local governments, and even our own colleagues on the ground told us a similar answer. Most of the interventions are done with a top-down approach, so they're disconnected with the community needs and their expectations of the future. Also, the interventions are done in an unilateral manner by each UN agency without thinking or taking into account the synergies, the complementarities, or the interlinkages between their intervention with others. For example, we even had at a point in Buenaventura more than 6 UN projects that never spoke to each other. And finally, most of the interventions are earmarked, so they're rigid and they cannot be adapted to local contexts or shifting needs. So based on this, we proposed a new approach. We like to think of it as a new way of working within the UN that tries to solve these very, very structural challenges with a simple methodology by promoting joint planning and programming around a common goal, tailored solutions with and for the community, co-designing it with the community, ownership from local actors, and more coordination across the UN for higher efficiency and impact. And this is how we did it concretely. We create a simple process. It's a 10-step agile process that allows you to go back and forth when you need it, so we can revise, modify, and adjust at any point. So I think we think it's resilient to change. And I just want to highlight key steps of the 10 process. One, the construction of future visions. We do this with the community. So we sit a lot of UN agencies, so multiple UN agencies with the community to design future visions using foresight techniques. We also identify a common main challenge, and this is not based on what usually the agencies do about their identifying main challenges based on the SDG gaps or data or indicators based on their missions and core missions, but based on what the community's knowledge and their limitations and their capacities. And then we design a joint solution that can be implemented by the community, and that implies multiple UN agencies to have to work together and collaborate.
So we tried out our process in different contexts, different territories with different communities, including in Buenaventura, where we went and we sat down with unemployed youth from violent neighborhoods. And the first thing they told us is, we don't want to work in the port. There's a massive industrial port, lots of job opportunities. We don't want to work there. It's not our calling. It's not our vision of our future. We had single mothers telling us, you want me to work in the port? How can I take care of my child? I don't have any access to state or private care services. What I need is a teleworking job. They were very clear about what they wanted, and they were very clear about the opportunities that their territory gave them, which we were not. They were also clear about what they needed. They told us, we can't just go knock on the private sector's door, local entrepreneurs, local business owners. They're never going to open their door to us. We need you to connect us with the private sector, and we need soft skills trainings, and we need vocational training. So in essence, they designed their own route to employment And they told us not to solve all the issues of their territory and the gang violence and the poverty. They just asked us to accompany them down the sustainable path that they had chosen for themselves. And that's when we realized that we had a bit more than just a process there. What we had was a tool that was helping us disrupt the status quo of how the UN operates. A simple tool at the end of the day that any one of our colleagues in territory could pick up, and several agencies, we even later learned several cooperation actors, could sit down with the community and create solutions tailored to their context. And that's a tool that brings us a bit closer to the UN 2.0 kind of DNA that we believe can help us solve the complex issues of today and those of tomorrow. And that's a bottom-up, integrated approach to designing our interventions. Now, we need two things. We need help from partners who share in this vision to gradually shift the mindsets, including the organizational culture of the UN. And we need flexible funding. Earmarking dollars in budget lines does not lead to greater impact. It leads to centralized decision-making. And we cannot systematize a bottom-up approach within the UN if funding continues to go to individual agencies, individual programs, individual projects. So help us provide greater value for your money and greater impact for your funds through flexible funding. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the 26 agencies in Colombia, let's do things different. Let's go back to basics. Thank you.
Very strong call to action there. Time for questions, feedback.
Okay, thank you. This is really interesting. Kind of taking the UN 2.0 agenda to programming in a way and scaling impact at the country level. But I wanted to maybe ask about those challenges regarding funding. I mean, you argue you need more flexible funding and so on. Funding is of course related to planning and defining, being able to kind of define results upfront. You're asking money for something that will then deliver results to those that want to fund it, etc. But these processes, I do agree, I mean, they're often very rigid. You need to kind of be able to define what you are going to be able to achieve in a couple of years' time, you know, what those results will look like. You need to be able to kind of define the resources you need for to be able to achieve those results. And this kind of iterative process where you test and scale, that's different because you need the right resources at the right time and to be able to kind of allocate those flexibly. Is this realistic from the kind of UN point of view? I mean, you're asking for flexible money, flexible funding, but can you work in a way that you change the UN bureaucracy to be able to plan and allocate resources differently?
That is the key question, is it not? No, so a couple of points. There's actually a two-tier innovation here. There's the innovation that's within the UN, meaning us working differently, that we've tried and it's worked. But every time we've done it, and every time we do it, we also create a kind of innovation, mini innovation, that's why we call it prototype light, mini innovation on the ground between local actors. So on the ground between local actors, I'm going to start with that actually because it's easier. Funding comes. We've seen it in Buenaventura. The first 25 youth on their route, we didn't even fund them as the UN. It's Italian cooperation that's also present in Buenaventura, was also involved, said, we want to fund this. The private sector said, we'll fund another 75 because we're interested in that. And then the governor of the department came and said, in my plan, I have a program for 3,000, for the labor inclusion of 3,000 youth, and I want to use your pipeline to fund them. So at local level, there's actually resources. What's missing there, and that's what we're always getting from the government and the private sector and the communities, is what we lack is the kind of pipeline, market-ready projects and initiatives that are built like this to execute the resources. Within the internal UN programming system, that's where it gets a bit tougher. But first of all, there are already sorts of flexible funds. There's the SDG funds to do joint programming. In Colombia, we have the Peace Fund, which also does joint integrated programs. We see structural or shortcomings, let's say, weaknesses in those tools, which I'm not going to get in here because it's a bit technical. But there's also a lot of work that's being carried out to develop innovative financing vehicles. The UN is working a lot on that. And the same way that we advocate for agencies to work together and bring their expertise, we walk the talk. We are working very closely with a number of colleagues who are working specifically to build these kind of innovative mechanisms, and there's quite a few of them, and they actually do exist out there, and they do provide flexibility, and often actually they do provide the tools to build responses from a territorial perspective, which is what we're trying to bring.
See, I just wanted to add that it's not only about the resources, like financing resources, but we've seen gains from the fact that, for example, in Buenaventura, the fact that 4 agencies knock on donors, knock on the government around the same program, the same objective, the same solution. It's already a change that they don't see, they don't usually have. And that's allowing us to have more flexible funding to finance these type of projects that are already prioritized by all the UN agencies and are working together to have like strategic financing mechanisms.
Yeah, and I will just add that we have 2 projects in Colombia already working like that. As Tristan said, we have the MPTF, which is the Multi-Donor Trust Fund, which is for the Peace Implementation Agreement. And in that fund, we need to work 3 agencies in order to receive the resources and to implement a project. So we are already doing it. We've been doing it for the last 6 years since the peace agreement was signed, and we have really good results from that. And now going to the humanitarian aid, we have the flagship initiative. And through the flagship initiative, we also have created this fund, this humanitarian fund, where one of the requirements is to present projects within 3-4 agencies in order to receive the resources. So we are doing it in Colombia. It's a challenge, it's true, it's a challenge, but we are already implementing the model of working together as one.
We do have a question from Muna. So Muna, floor is yours.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I think it's very interesting and addressing the fragmentation of the way we are working in this sector. My question is like, maybe you mentioned that, and apologies if this is repeated, but are you trying to include other agencies beyond the UN agencies? So it's a platform for all actors to have like a unified platform. And how would you, if it's a core funding, how would you measure success? How would you evaluate your interventions? And to what extent do you think donors would be ready to invest even in experimenting new ideas and to be less driven by results and direct success and direct direct to be more focused on impact, long-term impact, and to be more experimental than just measuring direct outcomes. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the question. I see a bit 2-part. The second part about moving towards judging our success and being accountable to the communities based on the impact and not the results, that's quite a tricky one. So I'm actually going to leave it to Natalie, and I'm going to answer the first part. Regarding working with other international cooperation actors, we didn't go into this level of detail, but the way the process works when we actually implement it with the community is we want the community at the center. So 70% of participants in the workshops roughly are from the community. But we also want a kind of a holistic approach. So we have the private sector, we have local government, we have sometimes representative of the national government as well if the territory is a priority. And we invite every single cooperation actor that is present in that territory to be in the workshop with us. So this is why the solutions the tailored solutions that have come out of this workshop, we've actually been able to implement them, or some of them, with other international cooperation actors. That's at the ground level. At the central level, there is a platform in Colombia, which is, it's the platform that groups the biggest donors and international cooperation actors. And we've actually showcased our methodology to that platform. And we've pitched the idea of just slightly adapting the methodology, since it's a process, we can do it easily, and doing that prototype live, not just UN agencies, but international cooperation actors, which is what you were asking. And we're planning to do that early next year. There are several other international cooperation actors who are very interested in that, because the same way there's a fragmentation and often duplication and ineffective or inefficient use of resources within the UN, we've mapped out the interventions of the international cooperation, geographically speaking and thematically speaking, in Colombia, and we've noticed that it's the same. Different international cooperation actors will try to do the same thing, but will not speak to each other and will not integrate each other. And that's clear to all of us. There's a general consensus, at least in the context of Colombia. So we're going to actually adapt and test out the methodology at a different scale early next year.
So regarding the measurement of results and impacts, I think that's a big question within the UN in every project and in every agency. But I think here what we thought about is that we can combine new methods about budgeting for results and planning for results, because since they become like really joint solutions and concrete programs, we can actually have the results. So we're trying the agencies to start measuring results by the same ones that were defined with the community, and to budget for results instead of budgeting for activities or products or outcomes, that it's usually what we do. So for example, we have the example in Buenaventura. Usually the UN agencies would budget like, 100 youth in training. I don't know how many technical assistance courses or talks or whatever, but actually doing measuring it's the youth inclusion, how do you say that? Labor inclusion, the ones that already have a contract, which is the result that we expect. And that's a huge shift for the UN because we never get to that. But since we have the joint solution measured or defining results, I think we can start doing that. And on the process, we're thinking about, we already collected some data with the first prototypes. But with what we learned here, we're trying to, when we scale it up, we're going to try to gather evidence on the communities, the local governments, how many joint programs, how effectively, like all the data we need to gather evidence for this kind of approaches.
Thank you. We have one more question from Marketa.
This is going to be a quick one. You answered many of my questions already, so I'm not going to ask them. First of all, congratulations, very insightful, and this is the way we all want to go. So congratulations on walking the talk. My main question now is, what are the main insights you have gathered during this week? What has changed in your thinking to make this even more resilient and robust for the future?
The first one that we already have it in the slogan, and we took it from our presentation, is that scaling is not about doing more, it's about getting more impact. And that's like the major lesson, and we had it here in our presentation. So thank you for making us switch our mind on that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can't emphasize the value. If we're working for the betterment of people, their voices need to be heard. But how can we do that? And how can we enable that as well? So thank you, UNCT Colombia. Now we will have the World Food Program presenting to internal stakeholders at the World Food Program with SheCan.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Well, let's start. You see this first picture. Well, many people still picture the World Food Program as images of food aid, huge sacks of rice, of flour, stacked somewhere in a field, stacked somewhere in a tent. But actually, things have changed. Last year, over 40% of WFP's assistance wasn't food at all. It was hard cash. Research shows that cash assistance empowers people, boosts local economies, and improves outcomes like nutrition and asset building. This gives people agency, and in this regard, WFP, as the largest humanitarian agency, has a long history of innovating services for financial inclusion. However, if we talk about financial inclusion, this is only the first step. As you can see currently, almost 80% of women in lower and middle income countries do not have access to formal finance. This includes productive loans to improve their businesses. They live in remote places where financial institutions do not reach them. They have no credit history. They cannot find tailored loans that are relevant to their needs, and they lack the financial literacy and the trust in the system to navigate it. And to illustrate this, I'll take the example of Brandine, a maize farmer in southern Rwanda who has relied on farming for survival for years. With the help of WFP, she joined a farmer savings group that has provided valuable support already in investing in her crops. However, like many smallholder farmers in these countries, she still faces significant barriers to accessing productive loans that could help her grow her business. We believe that WFP still has a role to play in continuing to support Brandine and her families through formal financial inclusion, as well as that of millions of other farmers around the world.
To further support Brandine, but many other WFP beneficiaries, SheCan acts as a connector between all the stakeholders of the very challenging financial sector. So SheCan complements other WFP resilience program by directly providing support to smallholder farmers with gender-inclusive financial literacy so that they can navigate the financial system. SheCan also connects them with financial service providers by providing technical assistance to the financial service providers to tailor loan products that are directly answering the needs of smallholder farmers. The blended finance model of SheCan also allows us to connect financial service providers with impact investors by de-risking the capital that impact investors are putting into those financial service providers so that they can provide more affordable loans to smallholder farmers. And finally, for sustainable integration in national initiatives, SheCan works directly with governments so that the needs of the smallholder farmers are directly integrated in those policy initiatives. So the project has already demonstrated strong success by providing financial inclusion to over 58,000 people across 6 countries, demonstrating also the replicability of the model to different contexts and specific needs. Among those people, 78% of the loan recipients are women, and we've reached an impressive number of 0.1 default rate among all the loans, demonstrating the strong connection between the financial sector and the needs of those smallholder farmers in those countries. But we see rising demand and strong interest from many other countries in WFP that wants to integrate and add SheCan as part of their resilience and program activities.
However, and we learned that also here, scaling by geographical expansion is not the only and probably not the smartest way of expanding what we're doing at SheCan. So we believe in aligning to WFP's longstanding history of providing agency to the people that we serve in order to achieve the desired outcomes. So our ask or our proposition is to include SheCan, an approach as a corporate solution into WFP's financial inclusion planning and into the inclusive finance strategy. By doing so, this will enable WFP to provide more holistic financial inclusion planning and programming, increase efficiencies, and also increase resource mobilization by speaking both to public and private sector partners around a common objective along the humanitarian development spectrum. So concretely, what would that mean for Brandine and her communities? As a corporate solution, we would have sufficient leverage to actually push 5 strategic levers forward over the next 5 years. The first one being that we would further integrate financial literacy trainings into national strategies, so governmental financial inclusion strategies, to ensure that Brandine and communities have an increased opportunity to step-by-step learn more about financial services and feel more empowered. Secondly, we would further strengthen the digital lending processes so that affordable gender mainstream loans are accessible both via feature phones and and smartphones, so that the loan origination costs, which currently prevent financial institutions to go further in field, will diminish as well. Thirdly, we will further explore data economy principles to leverage the power of data and make, for example, mobile payment data work for the beneficiaries so that the credit risk assessment can be done at a fraction of the price.
And lastly, we will further strengthen our blended finance approach by connecting partner financial service providers more closely with impact investors for de-risking or risk sharing, as well as cheaper refinancing costs, so that the tailored gender mainstream products actually remain in the local markets. To conclude, we see sustainable and affordable lending to smallholder farmers as a key component of WFP's financial inclusion strategy in order to achieve food security and also livelihood outcomes. We here represent the SheCan Global team, Janina Canessa, Alice Caurio, and my name is Nora Praha, and we work very closely with all the amazing country offices and our colleagues in field to actually implement SheCan to bring gender-inclusive financial services to the people WFP serves. Thank you.
Thank you, WFP. Questions from Marketa already.
Congratulations for coming this far. I start with one question. I don't know if it's easy or difficult, and then I let others continue. I just wanted to understand a little bit more about your experiences of how to work with these financial service providers. How do you make them understand why this matters, and how do you get their buy-in? I would like to understand a little bit about the challenges and the opportunities that you bring to them, because they are in a very key position to make this work.
Indeed, I think that's spot on. And I think this is exactly where SheCan brings the added value, because currently WFP does not work with financial service providers. We're not a bank, we're not an investor. It's not the language that we generally speak. However, then when reaching out to financial service provider after having done a conclusive mapping and speaking to them, oftentimes it's not that they don't want to serve this client segment. It's for them, it's just not viable. They don't reach in field, their branches are just not located there. However, then we structure with them basically based on the borrower needs, that through field visits and data collection, we know a financial product that they are willing to adjust and set up in their technical systems. Then we support them to also, for example, in the case of Rwanda, to install a push and pull system to actually reach further afield clients. And eventually we monitor all the impact that is generated. And oftentimes financial service providers don't provide the liquidity to this specific credit line because their refinancing cost is really, really high. So we connect them also with crowd lending platforms or impact investors for concessional investments to the specific credit line that generates impact. So WFP provides the impact metrics or the gender reporting that eventually the impact investors want to see so that they continue lending at the preferable rate. And to go further in that, we see that at each country, the conditions that we can flex are very different. What we don't try to do is to distort markets or offer zero interest loans. By no means. It's oftentimes the upfront costs that are too high, or in the case of Iraq, where we launched last month, it was mail signatory only. So it's really conditions that we'd like to flex for first-time borrowers. But indeed, it's a tricky one.
Perhaps just to mention or to summarize, this has to make financial sense for them. That's how you get their buy-in, of course. But we don't want just to subsidize interest or subsidize fees. We want to tailor a loan that makes financial sense for them and for the target population, and they can keep serving these populations and then go back and, let's say, cover their operational expenses.
Thank you. Any more questions or feedback? I see over there, and then thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. And my name is João Sigora. I'm from Demos Helsinki. We spent the past 3 days also working on the accelerator. And one of the things we were discussing is the issue of problem fit, how to ensure that our solution is actually addressing the problem. And I think you're definitely addressing an important component there. But I'm also wondering that there are definitely other elements that influence the women's maybe lack of power in the agricultural chain. And I wonder if you have anything to say on how maybe this solution could be integrated or how it could be connected to address other elements that might be preventing women from actually having a say or having more power in this environment other than the lack of resources?
No, maybe something good to mention here is that SheCan acts as a top-up as other resilient activities that WFP is leading towards those beneficiaries. So most of the women that we work with are also integrated among other resilience programs of WFP, such as access to markets, climate risk insurance, etc. And we also work closely with those units and act as a connectors also among WFP to make sure that we have an integrated approach for resilience and empowerment of those women.
And probably to add as well, so in each country, we also work closely with our gender officers, but also then with local NGOs to really have it as a grassroots sort of approach. So we train the women on empowerment topics, although I know we shouldn't be using this word. I can't remember who said it's a buzzword we shouldn't use. But basically, we work with the women directly to see that they can be the agents for themselves to change. However, we also work then with the husbands and the boys and the men in the communities to make sure that they are also part of the story. And this is oftentimes where the name SheCan is a bit misleading. We don't target like 100% of our beneficiaries as men. We want to be inclusive and don't exclude, because this actually can have like negative effects to the whole story. So we want to include the husbands and the men in the community to make sure that they equally understand the benefit of their women and well, yeah, the whole community really be uplifted. So that's a big component as well of the program.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. There's one in the audience here and then Muna. So over to you.
Hey, thank you for very nice presentation and congratulations. This is impressive work. As Heli Hidén presented me in the kind of beginning of the session, I come from the Applied Research Institute, VTT, from Finland, and here really looking maybe something at say technological perspective, and here I see, well, you are kind of solving a great societal challenge, but maybe needing the help of technologies to assist you here in using digital technologies and actually data as to help in decision making. So how do you see how easy is it to connect with the technology developers and maybe see the opportunities that technology can provide? So is it easy to find these kind of interactions and find these kind of technological solutions that might help you forward? Thanks.
I go first, but indeed, and that was also a big sort of aha moment during the training, is that this digital component with the help of Marius as well made it very clear that it's not going away anymore. And it's just, we are not the tech experts. And this is definitely when we did the stakeholder mapping, a key area where we would outsource. Also, like our history has shown that WFP is not the greatest entity to, build in-house platforms that the private sector is just better positioned to do. What we've seen with the digital lending process, that it's really, really tough to find like a provider that does the front to back end. So this means like digital record keeping for village savings groups to then sending the money from their mobile phone to the bank, and that the loan, or they can also repay the installments and originate a loan equally, a follow-on loan over their phone. So currently we are working with Hive Online and others. They are running pilots in some countries, but not on the full integrated process and not in a scalable manner that we could bring this to a whole region. You might have seen in the countries where we are, it's very scattered because we follow the demand-driven approach. So when country office colleagues actually say we want this, it's not like we think you should do this, that we hear from them they need this. But yeah, has definitely been a challenge to find an integrated approach and a provider that could be active in multiple countries. But I'd probably ask Janina and Alice as well, because they've been working on this a lot.
Yeah, some lessons learned as well that we found is that this depends a lot on the context. So in some contexts, for example, a lesson learned in our project in Rwanda was that we came with all these solutions, all these digital solutions, digital bookkeeping for savings groups, push and pull systems of cash to financial institutions working with us. But then what was really lacking in the communities was basic digital literacy, right? So we provided that, but not at the extent that as we should. So what we're doing now in the Scale Up is really concentrating at that level, and then working with those communities to see what sort of solutions they might like as well, and they need actually to further their financial inclusion.
Probably just one final thought there. We see also many governments underlining exactly that element in the countries where we are, and they themselves open call for proposals. Maybe some of them in the room have applied to exactly to use like spatial data from fields, crop, the size of plots, etc., to enhance the credit risk assessment so that the loan officers wouldn't need to go there. But so far we haven't. Yeah, we're on the lookout. So happy for any guidance.
We have one more question from Muna.
Hi, thank you for the presentation and this interesting project. And I have, my question is about the legal framework in each country and the policies on the national level, and to what extent you see this initiative can be integrated in long-term national policies when it comes to women empowerment. Sorry, I have to use the same word. Yeah, and also the economic frameworks and how the country is functioning, what are the financial models in each country. So are we going to do like a separate assessment in each country and to have to make sure that this initiative is integrated in the broader policy framework in the country? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Also, lesson learned from the pilots. We really, to be honest, didn't work with government that much. However, we have 2 scale-ups right now, Rwanda, Zambia. What we're doing is really analyzing the national financial system at the macro level. We leverage tools that WFP already has. As mentioned in the presentation, we work a lot with cash-based transfers. This includes in all the countries that we implement this financial sector assessment. So we leverage that. We go deeper into the specifics of our target, what our target population needs. We do our mapping of the financial services providers around the country, but also work closely with governments. As you might know, WFP doesn't really, or doesn't have currently the culture of working with Ministry of Finance or central banks. However, they work closely with ministries of agriculture. We are trying to find that intersection in creating the tools necessary to approach these ministries. And what we're doing already is helping our country offices in meeting these ministries, the central banks, going with the right questions, taking the right, let's say, data, so we can further, well, first align with their own strategies and see how WFP, with the resources, with what they're already doing, can further support their strategies and not duplicate resources as well with what other organizations are doing in the sector.
And yeah, just to complement, basically before we go into any new country, we do a feasibility assessment, which means we look at the demand side of capital. So they're really looking at the borrowers. WFP has like databases of beneficiaries that we work with. We go in field or through our field offices, ask exactly like what kind of financial products or lending product they would require, which term, which interest rate, what can they afford, basically what makes sense at what time in the season. Then we do a comprehensive capital supply side analysis, as Janina outlined, leveraging the financial sector, industry reports that exist already in WFP, and a holistic mapping of financial service providers, interviews, reaching out, meeting them there, and looking at their gender strategies and overall their policies when it comes to serving rural populations. And finally, also the enabling environment. We look at the digital penetration, the infrastructure, we look at the government, their readiness to embark on this. Rwanda is on the forefront on it, I think, across the countries where we're currently active. And all of this then, based on all this analysis, we say like, okay, we model SheCan so that it fits the local purpose. But yeah, it's a process, but we saw that it's vital before going anywhere.
One example of this would be when we started this in the Scale Up in Zambia. We approached the Ministry of Finance, we approached the Ministry of Agriculture, and they led us to other organizations working in the same sector. So together we are creating a technical working group of agricultural finance with all these stakeholders together on how we can leverage these resources that we already have and what we're already doing to integrate this in the next policies as well that are being developed.
Thank you very much, WFP. Unfortunately, I think we can, obviously very complex things with very complex innovations, and I think we can spend days on it as well. But we have our final team from UNODC Colombia, who will be presenting Lentes Violeta. And they'll be presenting to the local government.
Yes, if the clicker works with Canva, I don't know. Let's try. See. We're impressed. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then you go back some. Yeah.
Nine million people live in Bogota, and 51% of them are women. Every hour, one woman suffers domestic violence in situations related to drugs use with the couples or after they couples have used drugs. Women who experience gender violence in Bogota report feeling alone, afraid, and ashamed. They also say they don't know about available programs and service that could help them. And they feel distraught towards the institution's response.
Imagine your babysitter in a bus. Remind her how her husband came home drunk and hit her. Imagine your daughter getting out of school and saying, I feel like my professor touched me in a weird way. Imagine you are in a bar and you awake next day and remember that you was drinking with your colleagues and something happened. A colleague abused you. Being a woman in Bogota is a risk. How we can address this? How can we reduce this distress? How can you, the government, reach more women who are victims of violence or at risk of use of drugs? We want to create an evidence-based solution together.
Since 2021, we work with Bogota to develop the mental health study, the drug use study, the violet lenses strategy that includes training programs with policymakers, with professionals, with women that suffer domestic violence. And we developed a prove a tool to detect violence and drug use. But what about the other woman? Evidence shows us that programs with AI helps to close gaps, make closer people in risk with the public services, and develop a predictive risk capacity. We want to propose the development of a conversational generative AI on WhatsApp so that any woman in the city can have a preventive tool right in their fingertips.
So this is our proposal. We're going to give Bogota Violent Lens digital strategy. What will women find there? What will I, as a woman in Bogota, will find in Sofia? Friendly interaction, guidance to identify their needs, my needs for support in issues of substance use and violence, or risk violence, information on available city services tailored to their needs, support in high-risk situations. What purpose will serve to you as local government? You will find in Sofia the way to expand coverage, enhance support services, activate response pathways, reduce costs, generate data for anticipation and prevention programs.
How are we going to do it? At first, we are going to build this app based on the woman's needs. We are going to do a process of co-creation. Then we are going to do a collaborative design that includes to prove the app with women, to understand the needs of the women, and to train the AI of the Bogota citizens, women that needs this app. Then we are going to do a pilot test to be sure that everything is working well. And when we are sure of that, we are going to give this tool to the citizen, to the city of Bogota, using a communication plan that includes support and monitoring and evaluation. So we're going to build a digital community care, and Bogota will be a pioneer in developing the AI to prevent and protect women. Sofia is an AI developed by and for women for a city shaped to fit our dreams. Thank you.
Thank you, Team UNODC Colombia. Anything? Aki.
Yeah, really interesting idea. Thanks for the presentation. Maybe, I mean, something you didn't talk about much here was the risks involved in such an endeavor. So what do you think the risks are, and how can you mitigate those? And then maybe secondly, I wanted to ask about you're proposing a conversational app to deal with the sort of very different circumstances of different women in Bogota. Of course, they're not only women, they're women in different circumstances, sure, but there's also the kind of intersectional angle to this. There might be women that belong to a minority in the city, or they might be poor, rich, whatever. So how do you think this kind of solution can take that intersectionality into account in terms of, for example, training it? You know, what challenges does it pose for that? Thanks.
Well, about your first question, we've been thinking about those kind of risks, and well, there is too many risks, for example, about the security of the information of the women. And those are basically the challenge that we are going to try to understand talking with the women of Bogota. Bogota is, as Elena says, a 9 million inhabitant city. It's so big. And the women in Bogota are, they are not homogeneous. They are really different, and they have different needs. For example, what we understand with our strategy, with Violet Lenses strategy, that well, we have here some publications, is that, for example, the risk is for all the women that are in poverty conditions and women that have more privilege. They suffer violence. But the thing is that the ways to call to the authorities basically are not enough, yes? And those kind of things is what we need to understand in the pilot test. How can the rich woman, how can we combine the rich woman to call the authorities to find a service? And the idea of an AI is that maybe she's not going to do it, never. But maybe this AI is going to provide her some tips to go out of this situation, because maybe there is too many factors that she's not going to contact the authorities. And probably if we have these kind of tools that provides her confidentiality, and that maybe she's not going to have a human interaction, she's going to feel secure than talking with an authority. Those kind of things happen with some women, and that's the idea why we know that some call attention lines can work, but not for all the women. And about the second question,
you almost responded. I think that there's something very important in the risk aspects, that is an institutional level, because the government, we just try to solve that, because the government said, I want this kind of tools. I want to connect better with the women of Bogota and all kind of women of Bogota, because the services are always like very focused on poor women in some sectors of Bogota that seems to be like the most violence presence for women. But when you see there are a lot of violence happening in universities, in other contexts, and these women are not objective of the policy of Bogota sometimes. So when I think of this as a woman of Bogota, I feel like this kind of tools connect me with other way to relate with the institutions. So if I'm in risk, I would like to have this. I would like to have something where I'm not ashamed to go to the police or to the psychosocial to say, I think I'm being abused. Maybe I can have some tips, and maybe I can have been sensitized. And by that way, then I will go to the place where the IA can tell me where to go.
Thank you. Great presentation. I have a question now from local government's perspective. Like, what are your current experiences of the pilot you have run, and how much investment would this require from the local government? Plus, how do you plan to measure the impact? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I don't know if I ask. We have an agreement with the secretary, woman secretary, and we are close to have an agreement with the health secretary, because we are related violence, domestic violence with youth drugs. So these two secretaries and Bogota as well have a plan to be a digital city, and to go forward to have more kind of this kind of solutions for the problems of Bogota. So right now, this engagement, this agreement that we have a budget. It's a limited budget, but we are trying to invest it better, because we cannot do more training to the professionals. It's so small. It's a huge budget, and the impact is still very, very small. So we think that with this budget that we have with the secretary, of course, and the budget of global tools as well, we can maybe improve and have more impact with the budget that we have with the secretary and the secretary of health right now.
We have one more short question, and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you for the presentation. It's amazing work you guys are doing. So you picked WhatsApp as the vector to have the exchange, and as I understood, the Gen AI will provide kind of recommendations and support for victims of Bogota, right? I mean, WhatsApp is amazing at forwarding on links, right? So what happens if maybe a victim in Bogota who went through the service and received services and advice, if they say would forward that on to other victims, but not in Bogota, like in other cities in Colombia, excuse my ignorance, does that mean like is the recommendations that the Gen AI would return, is it specific just to Bogota, or would it also make sense if a victim was using it in a different city? Or does it say like you have to go to this particular service on this particular street? So it makes sense if you're geographically there, but it may not sense if you're geographically somewhere else. or is there a way of knowing if you're in the location or not? Amazing project.
Thank you for your question. It's a challenge because of course it's thinking about Bogota, but Colombia have policies that make possible that you can extend some services. So for example, justice houses are in all Colombia, and justice houses have their own pathway to provide women that suffer violence. So of course, I think that the WhatsApp is going to be like very specific for Bogota, but maybe give some general options for women that are in Colombia, but are going to be very specific for Bogota.
Well, and another important thing is that we choose WhatsApp because Colombia has too many gaps to access to internet still, but the most of the people in Colombia use WhatsApp. Yeah, that's like the principle. The people in Colombia use more WhatsApp than calls. Yeah, and even, for example, the old people in Colombia use WhatsApp. Yeah, so it's like the best vehicle to develop these kind of things. We talk with a lot of engineers in our UNODC office, and we conclude that that's the best vehicle to use this. And well, there is too many other ideas. For example, how can we put this tool in the hands of the women in Bogota? There is probably too many actors, private actors, that can help us with that. For example, supermarkets, the buses, the Transmilenio system transport in Bogota can help us to disseminate the tool. But basically, we really believe that WhatsApp is the best vehicle, that probably this is going to have an impact in other cities in Colombia. But at first, we are going to start with Bogota because it's the biggest city, and is the city that has more identified this problem. The other cities has the problem, but they have not studies like Bogota. Yeah. Last but not least, Dream Team: Elena Pulgarin, Catalina Gonzalez, and Daniel Ballesteros.
Thank you very much, UNODC Colombia. And now you made it. Whoa. Massive round of applause for yourselves. Congratulations for coming so far. We will be having lunch soon, but first, a very big thank you first to the Ministry for Foreign Affairs for always supporting us and our work in this program. And thank you to the city of Espoo and Aalto University for being such generous hosts and showing us around and giving us tips on highlights of Finland as well. And thank you to Demos Helsinki for being our strategic partner and walking the teams through their strategy. And all you see here has an entire team of UN Global Pulse colleagues working in front of you, behind the scenes, on the sides, everywhere you can imagine. So thank you very much to the UN Global Pulse team. There is admin ops, there's mail and knowledge management, there's foresight, and there's creative comms. There are the interns that we have joined us. And I think a personal thank you to the team that's supporting me, the innovation scaling team, Mira Hamalainen and Miriam Shakir. They have been working on every single thing possible to make this happen today. So thank you very much. And I think the biggest thank you also to the guests for coming and for the virtual guests dialing in. Thank you very much for giving us your time. But the biggest thank you goes to the 7 teams that have come all across from the world around us to share your work with us. Thank you for doing what you do and for letting us be part of your journey and helping each other to address complex challenges of the world together. And this strategy is not the end goal or the end of the journey, but rather the start of something more. So thank you very much again, and have a good lunch. And